It's time for some straight talk. The big wireless companies charge a boatload for their superior network coverage. But guess what? Straight Talk uses the same cell towers, but you pay half the cost. Who knew? Well, now you do. And I do. So let's do something. It's time to switch to Straight Talk. Unlimited plans start at just $45 a month on America's largest, most dependable networks. Straight Talk Wireless, only at Walmart.
Savings may vary. Please refer always to the latest terms and conditions of service at straighttalk.com.
I mentioned to you that, or you heard right there in the open, the conversation, Roger Federer, when he won Wimbledon for the first time, at a time that no one knew he was going to go on and become one of the greatest players ever. His native Switzerland, when he returned home, gave him a cow.
A cow.
And I remember we spent days on that.
Yes, we did.
What kind of, that's like something I would imagine you would do to me if I did something wrong.
Yeah. Here,
like,
you have to take this cow.
My punishment is that I must now have a cow.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you basically said to me, Greeny, I've committed some sort of relatively minor crime, like speeding or, jaywalking,
right.
And the punishment is for 1 week, you must now have a cow.
You own a cow.
That's how I would view it. Because what am I doing with a cow?
Well,
I mean, even a horse, I can see, like, I personally wouldn't like the horse, but people come over, ride the horse, pet the horse. What are you doing with a cow?
First thing you have to do is have space for it. Plus, there's one thing to picking up, like, dog poop around your house. How about a cow patty?
Well, it's not in the house. I'm assuming
Around
you're not keeping the cows. But you're not.
No, I know.
With the cow. No, but I mean, I don't have a cow pasture, so I mean, I probably would have to keep the cow in the house.
You have to keep them in the backyard, probably.
We'd have to cordon off an area.
Yeah.
And this is where the cow's going to be.
Yeah, be careful of the cow patty.
And that'll teach me not to speed anymore. I mean,
I would say so. You learn your lesson.
Punishment.
Yeah.
And that conversation began because Rougned Odor got 2 horses as part of his contract with the Texas Rangers. He signed a $47-something million deal with the Rangers, and they know he calls himself the Venezuelan cowboy because he loves horses and always has. So they gave him 2 horses as part of the contract.
How about that?
Which was interesting. And it got us looking into some other interesting contractual bonuses.
Yeah, so let's go back to 1986. After a great rookie season in 86, Charlie Kerfeld, a rotund reliever.
You remember Kerfeld?
I sure do.
He was hefty.
He was rotund. So he always pitched in his Lucky Jetsons T-shirt, needed a new contract, and he asked for $110,037.37, matching his number 37 jersey to pitch in 1987. On top of that, he also received 37 boxes of orange Jell-O in the deal.
Orange
Jell-O. So the Astros, giving him, I guess, food you would call that.
They gave him 37 boxes of Jell-O.
Soon regretted that because Kerfeld was famously caught eating ribs in the dugout that season, would battle weight and injury problems and get sent down to the minors.
So the Jell-O maybe was the beginning of his undoing. I mean, I think we could look at it that way and say the whole downward spiral of Charlie Kerfeld began with the Jell-O.
Then you get George Brett. Everybody knows George Brett, and when he signed his new deal, the club agreed to give Brett the bat he used in the infamous 1983 Pine Tar game. But his brother Bobby was negotiating the deal, and as part of it, he got a piece of 1,100 apartment complex, 1,100 apartments in an apartment complex as a nice little kicker. He received a guaranteed cash flow of $1 million from the development and retained the right to sell his 10% stake to the Royals for $2 million. So he was part owner of an apartment complex.
They gave him part ownership of an apartment complex in Memphis. Now, I'd rather have that than a cow.
I would as well.
Seems like a lot of work. I mean, you have to keep up on what's going on
especially when it says you're guaranteed cash flow of $1 million so you can sell it for $2 million. And then Ichiro was making $17 million a year, signed a 5-year contract extension in 2007. Included in that was 4 round-trip airline tickets to Japan each year, the services of an interpreter and trainer throughout the season. And remember, he's making $17 million a year.
Yeah.
It also included a housing allowance for each year of the deal. And that housing allowance ranged between $32,000 and $36,000. So basically paid for the rent for the house that he lived in while he was playing there.
That makes me think of another story entirely, and we'll have Grant Hill coming up here in a minute talking about the Final Four. USA Today every single year around the time of the Final Four puts out like a list of all the coaches' salaries and all the bonuses they make and all that kind of stuff. And I am on record. I've said it a million. It turns out that, did you see which coach makes the most money in college basketball?
Basketball? No, I did not.
Everyone assumes it's Cal.
Yeah.
It's Pitino.
It is.
Pitino actually does. If you include what he makes off the court, he actually makes more. And by off the court, I don't mean investments or endorsements.
No, yeah.
But as part of being the coach of Louisville, he makes more money in total than Calipari, who is second, and all the people you would expect to be up there are the people you'd expect to be up there. But a guy like, I think the number, I don't have it in front of me, it was in the notes the other day, but Pitino was like $7.5 million. And listen, and I'll say this until I'm blue in the face. I have zero issue with that. This is America. Make as much money as you can. Whatever they're paying Nick Saban, I've said it before, it's not enough. Mm-hmm. And if you're Rick Pitino or you're John Calipari or you're Tom Izzo, you're whoever these guys are, whatever they're willing to pay you, take it. Krzyzewski, of course, is up there and all of that. But then you look at some of the other, very quickly, that's what made me think of it, the little perks in their contracts. Like, they get to travel. They get to their family gets to travel on the university's expense to this stuff on the team. Excuse me, you're correct. On the plane, all that little stuff, and you just keep looking at all that kind of stuff added up, and you see the billions of dollars that are being generated here. It really does. You know me. You know the side of this whole thing that I fall on.
Oh, I'm with you.
It frustrates me when I read that part.
I do love the little perks, though.
I'm all in favor of those guys getting paid as much as they possibly can. It's America. It shouldn't end there. Okay, let's not get hung up on that because we got basketball to talk about. You see him all the way through this entire run in March Madness, of course, and he'll be there on the call of the Final Four. And he joins us this morning on behalf of Pizza Hut because we see him doing the commercials.
Yes, we do.
We see him ordering the pizzas right there on his shoes.
I have a pair of those shoes as well.
Here's our friend Grant Hill from Turner Sports back with us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. What's up, Grant?
Good morning, guys. I'm glad to know you have a pair of shoes, too. I heard you guys got some.
Oh, it's awesome. Absolutely awesome. It's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
They're the pie tops.
I think you say they're awesome.
Right, the shoes are called pie tops. They're high tops, but you push the button. I was away when they were delivered.
You push the button and you get delivered to where you are. I can't help but notice they sent
shoes to Mike, and I was away that week watching Northwestern play in the tournament, and I came back, and there were no shoes for me.
Yeah, they went to a different Mike, I guess.
Let the record show, Grant. One of the Mikes here didn't get the shoes. Anyway.
Oh, man, we'll have to work on it. We'll have to make sure you get it.
All right, great. Let's get into the games here themselves, obviously, and we'll look at each of the teams individually. Let's start by talking about, if you want to use the term Cinderella, certainly crashing the party is this South Carolina team. But you watch them, and they certainly look for real with the run they've made in the tournament. They knocked out your alma mater, Duke, in the second round. The kid, Sedarius Thornwell, has been just sensational, and they play a stifling brand of defense that got them through Madison Square Garden on into the Final Four. Give us your breakdown on what you've seen from South Carolina.
I'll tell you what, this team is fantastic. You mentioned Thornwell, SEC Player of the Year, and I really do think sort of before the tournament started, he might have been the most underrated sort of great player in college basketball. I mean, all the greatness he had this season, and no one really knew a whole lot about him. And obviously no one knew a lot about the team either, but he is as good as anybody, and obviously has been sensational throughout the tournament. And then the team itself, Frank Martin, getting this program up and going, the defense, the stifling defense, the pressure, the physicality that they bring to the game. It's a relentless sort of suffocation that occurs when they defend. And, what they've done during the tournament that they didn't really do consistently during the regular season is their scoring. They're scoring at a high clip. They're really feeding off of their defense and going down the offensive end and putting up big numbers. And so, they have been, like you said, the surprise of the tournament. It seems like every year we have a surprise, we have a Cinderella, but they have managed to get to the tournament and are feeling good, are playing confident, and are capable. I mean, they are very capable of winning this whole thing. So it'll be fun to see them on this stage. They're an experienced team. They have a toughness that reflects their coach. And that will be a really good matchup between them and Gonzaga.
Yeah, we always mention their defense, but you're right about their offense. They're averaging 82 points a game in the tournament, second only to North Carolina at 85.5 points a game. So they are getting it done on both ends. And let me ask you about the scoring and how you think the scoring will be. I asked Bruce Bowen this, but I want to ask you, a guy who's certainly used to scoring a lot of points, how is shooting differ, and how much more difficult will it be with the depth perception in a football stadium as opposed to an arena where basketball is normally played?
Well, you know what's funny? I played in the arenas back in 91 and 92 when we won the championship. The only problem was I wasn't a shooter. Coach K told me to only shoot when I'm in the paint. So it didn't bother me or my teammates. I was at the arena yesterday, the stadium, and it's big. It seems like it's bigger than the stadium last year in Houston. I will say, though, look, I mean, in recent years, we have seen some amazing shooting performances in the Dome. I think last year, Marcus Page, his shot at the end, but then Chris Jenkins, his game winner. So I don't anticipate it being a problem. I think one of the things the NCAA has done now, they have brought the teams in earlier, and now they get 2 or 3 days of practice inside the stadium. And so you get a chance to get a lot of shots up, get accustomed to the depth perception. Today you have the open practices that are open to the public, and they usually have a really good turnout, some great energy. So it's a little bit like a game environment. So they get a lot of shots up. Back when I played in the early 90s, you had 1 day of practice, and that was open to the public. And you really couldn't get a lot accomplished during that time. So I don't anticipate it being a problem. I mean, I think once you get into the game as a competitor, it doesn't matter if you're in a playground, you're in a high school gym, or you're in a football stadium. You're just out there competing. You're acting and reacting, and you're trying to help your team win, and you forget about all the other stuff. So I don't anticipate it. We'll see. We've had problems before in the past, so I think this year will be okay.
Grant Hill is with us here on Mike and Mike, getting ready to call the Final Four for Turner with Nance and Raftery and Wolfson and company. And these teams, especially in that game, they're not going to have any other trouble because you got enough defense going on out there on the floor as well. It feels like the first to 50 might wind up winning that game because this Gonzaga team, which has traditionally been an offensive-based team, they've been stifling defensively, Grant. So where do you see the offense on both sides netting out here with the great defense South Carolina's going to play on one side and the Gonzaga is going to play on the other?
It's funny, our broadcasting team, we met with Mark Few yesterday at his hotel, and he said, this year's team is hurting his reputation because they defend really well.
Yeah.
And they are a very good defensive team, but offense, I mean, this is his best team, and I think his best team he's ever had. It's got a tremendous amount of depth and balance, got experience, a lot of transfers that come in, and they put it together in a short period of time. I think the one thing Gonzaga has going for them is that they saw West Virginia in the Sweet 16. And West Virginia is probably the only other team that plays that kind of stifling defense like South Carolina. So it was a close game. It came down to the last minute. They were able to win the game. But I just feel like that confidence of knowing what is out there, maybe making some adjustments. They didn't see that during their regular season. Really, no team sees it. But I think that'll help them. I think you have to attack that defense. You have to go at them. You have to attack. I actually think both teams are good enough offensively to where it'll be a game in the low 70s. I really do think that. I don't think it'll be a walk it up. These are two very good offensive teams that are playing with tremendous confidence right now. I always say, Bruce Bowen knows this as well as anybody. Good offense trumps good defense. So.
As far as North Carolina, Oregon, nobody's surprised North Carolina is there. Oregon losing Boucher, the big guy who also has a nice touch outside at threes as well, gone from that team. Here they are in the Final Four. What about that team can give North Carolina the most trouble?
Well, we all know, and you guys know as well as anybody, it's all about matchups. And, obviously they did a tremendous job against Kansas. Kansas was averaging 96 points in the first three postseason games. They held them to 60 points. Carolina's a different team. They have great size. They get up and down the court well. Jackson's playing at an elite level. But Brooks, Dylan Brooks is going to be an interesting matchup. You kind of play him at the power forward position. And so who's going to guard him from Carolina? You're going to put Isaiah Hicks, Meeks, maybe Luke May. Now you have a bigger guy guarding him. They space the floor. They really do a lot of penetration and kick, driving kick, a lot of isolation one-on-one. So if they're hitting shots, then they're pretty dangerous. And then the kid Dorsey, he has emerged along with Brooks as their go-to guy. 7 consecutive games, 20-plus points. Just shooting the ball well, playing with a tremendous amount of confidence. And so the two of those guys, it's about matchups. And now, Carolina is as good as any team defensively. They're well-rounded. You know, they do everything pretty well. They go inside, they shoot from the perimeter, they're doing better, they run. They really can lock down and defend you. So, but I want to see that Brooks-Hicks matchup. And who's going to win the best of that? Is Hicks going to be able to take advantage inside against the smaller Brooks? And will Brooks be able to pick him out on the perimeter and shoot and get him off the dribble? So that'll be a matchup to watch. Oregon's a very dangerous team. They play with a lot of confidence. They're very loose. But they have a toughness about them, a mental and a physical toughness. That's quite interesting. So that one, too, should be a good matchup as well.
Absolutely. The way they held off Kansas in those final minutes, I thought was remarkable. Mike and Grant Hill, quick final one for you here, and then we'll let everyone know how they can get their own pair of these Pizza Hut Pie Tops. But I have so enjoyed, as I think everyone has, watching you guys with the broadcast and you and Nance. And Raftery in particular is so funny. I'm just wondering, when he goes into one of his things, when Bill Raftery goes into his shtick, especially going into a break and all of that, what's it like sitting next to him when he's doing that? When he goes to his famous kiss in the glass, and I'm not even going to do my imitation of him because it'll be awful. What is it like sitting next to Bill Raftery when he's doing one of those things?
Well, the interesting thing, he's doing those things all the time,
yeah.
Either on air or off air. Now, you know what? Like, he starts the game and he always does this little, minute man, and I'm always laughing. I have to gather myself and press the cough button so I don't laugh on air. But you know what? He makes it fun. He makes it fun, as does Jim Nance. They're great guys. The Raph, when he goes into one of his things, like, I know when somebody hits a bank shot or gets, he gets excited, he gets hyped. It gets me excited, and it's funny. Like, he's just a really funny guy, great broadcaster, and, he is one of the best to ever do it. So I'm constantly laughing on air and laughing at Raph.
He is fun. The little nickel dimer,
all
his
so
little
good.
expressions. Okay, so we mentioned it earlier. They sent us, the people at Pizza Hut, for whom Grant, of course, is doing the commercials and everything else, they sent a couple of pair of high tops here for us. I wasn't here. Golic took mine, and he took the other ones as well. Mm-hmm. So, Grant, for all the people like me who do not have these shoes, how can they get them?
Yes. Well, it's interesting. On Monday, Pizza Hut is giving fans a chance to score a pair of the pie tops, and you can go to pietopshunt.com, pietopshunt.com, and so you can retrieve or at least get a pair yourself, Mike.
Mm-hmm. I'm writing that down.
And you can be like us. And I tell you, it's awesome. Obviously, the whole concept was making ordering pizza easy, and through your mobile device, through your Amazon Echo, and obviously through these pie tops. And during the tournament, you gotta eat pizza while you're watching the tournament, and so it's really been a cool campaign. But it's amazing how excited people are over these pie tops.
Yeah.
I've had more people come up to me wanting to see them on social media. So finally, we're making it so fans out there will get an opportunity to retrieve a pair themselves.
Very good.
That's great.
And
I
wrote that down. Pie Hut. I don't have my pair now, so I'm going to make sure I get into the contest. Hey, Grant, it's always our pleasure. Thank you so much. You'll be watching tomorrow night. Have fun.
All right, guys. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Grant.
That's Grant Hill again. They really do a fun job, but I do enjoy Raftery. I think that has been a really terrific addition. I like that broadcast team a lot, and he is just fun. Like, he's got his own little expressions.
Got his own little way to do it. Yes, he does.
A little nickel dimer when there's a terrible call. That's how Bill Raftery lets you know it was a terrible call. If the guy puts up a jumper and the guy grazes his hand, and the referee, because this is what they do in college basketball, they blow a whistle every time that you take a shot and the guy even looks at you. He always goes, "Ooh, a little nickel dimer." Like, everyone knows with the kiss off the glass.
Yeah. It's one of his favorite words is onions.
Oh, yeah. He's the one who started it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, everyone says onions now. He's the first person I ever heard say it. But my favorite one is a little nickel dimer. Always makes me laugh. It's those are just like old New York expressions. Maybe that's just something that for those of us who grew up sort of in that environment, it feels, for whatever reason, I love it. I absolutely love him. And so we haven't even made picks.
No, we haven't.
Who's winning these games tomorrow? I'm trying to remember now. Do you have any of these?
I have none of the Final Four. So I have North Carolina. I have them winning. And then there's part of me that wants to ride the South Carolina train. There really is. But push comes to shove, even though Darius might be mad at us if we both go against South Carolina, I'm going to say Gonzaga and North Carolina, 2 number ones.
I have a funny feeling it's going to be Gonzaga, Oregon. The way that Oregon team played the other night was unbelievable. He was talking about those two guys. The shots they hit, I'm talking contested threes with the shot clock at 2.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about onions.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of big shots you have to make. But the big factor here is, I don't know that Joel Berry can walk. I mean, he's got both ankles now.
Both ankles. That's exactly right. So we'll see. And the one thing that I want people to get off of is the Gonzaga and their road to the Final Four. Saying, looking at all the seeds they played exactly the seeds they should have, all the highest seeds until the Xavier game.
Right.
One seed goes through 16, 8, 4, and 2 if they get through every seed.
Right.
They went through a 16, they went through an 8, they went through a 4, and then they didn't go through the 2 in Arizona. They went through Xavier then, which was an 11. So, because I heard people, look at their road. They didn't play all. Yeah, they did. 3 of their games were against exactly the highest seed they should have been playing against.
If you don't think they're good, then you're not watching them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an opinion that can only be held by a person who hasn't watched them play, because they're obviously very good. They have all the things you need. They've got size. They have depth. They have a great point guard. And this guy, Jonathan Williams, is the least talked about really good player in the world. So they're a very good team. I think they will. And I like South Carolina. Cedarius Thornwell apparently didn't practice yesterday.
He was sick. He's sick. Yeah, they're just going to get a lot of fluids in him and just rest him, which is what you do. Yeah, that's a shame. And I'm really looking forward to the defense in both those games. I really am.
Yeah, I mean, you just heard Grant say he thinks that South Carolina and Gonzaga will get into the 70s. I'd love to see it. I don't expect it. I think that'll be a very low-scoring game. And then Berry, on the North Carolina point guard, Joel Berry, he says he's going to be fine and he's going to play. But that's what you say.
It's exactly what you say.
If you watch them on Sunday afternoon, it's a question mark there. Yeah. And he's a very important part of what they do. And that Oregon, they were so impressive against Kansas.
Oh, and Jordan Bell, I can't wait to see, if he's going to be what he was in the last game with the blocks and the rebounds was unreal.
Carolina's deep, and they're good. Look, that to me, I'll say it in advance. I think the winner of that game wins the championship. I think whoever wins North Carolina, Oregon is going to win. Yes, I do. Okay. I think they're going to. I think the winner of that game wins the championship.
Now that Applebee's Bourbon Street Chicken and Shrimp is only $9.99, ordering dinner just became a no-brainer. And that means you can spend more time on life's bigger questions, like which appetizer to get. Price and participation may vary. See restaurant for details.
Doris Burke, as she joins us live from Dallas again tonight, the women's Final Four with UConn taking center stage. Good morning, Doris.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are we doing?
We're doing great. There's a million things we want to get into with you. Let's start here with the women's Final Four. And, of course, I hate to say it this way, but it sort of feels almost every year now it's become like the UConn Invitational. So let's start by phrasing it this way. If Connecticut is going to get beat, and they've won 111 straight games, be it tonight or Sunday, what beats them? What is it that is going to eventually end this if it's going to happen this weekend?
Well, it's the most vulnerable group Gino Auriemma has brought to the Final Four in quite some time. One major vulnerability is there's zero front court depth. So if Gabby Williams or Nafisa Collier get into foul trouble, there's a significant drop, and it's played a part in the closest games they've played this year. So that's one. I think what's getting lost here on the casual fan who just would tune in at this point, these are all new kids, or 4 of the 5 starters and 5 of the top 6 players for Gino are in roles that they are bearing the weight of responsibility for winning for the first time in their careers. And listen, you now have 2 first-team All-Americans and 3, actually, if you include Gabby Williams, who should be 1. The emergence of Katie Lou Samuelson and Nafisa Collier and their willingness to sort of, be the production that leads to victory has been a really kind of cool story. Shania Chong, though, is in her first year as a starter. And for 3 years, she was so inconsistent and could never earn Gino's trust that she couldn't play. And so, what happens under game pressure if Mississippi State or one of the other 2 teams who comes out for a Sunday night national championship is able to put game pressure? Can they continue to meet these challenges? Those would be a couple of things. And then I do think that South Carolina is playing its best basketball. They endured an injury to Elena Coates, so they're playing smaller. The floor is better spaced, and there's talent there. So I don't want to say this is a layup. I think the Mississippi State team is going to have a major challenge. They were beat by 60 in last year's round of 16. So I don't see Connecticut losing the semifinal. But there are a few things here where they're more vulnerable, I think, than people would think.
Is there any way that Vic Schaefer, the coach at Mississippi State, is showing the team the game from last year as any kind of motivation process?
You know, Mike, as soon as they left Bridgeport and landed back in Starkville, 1 hour. I mean, they watched the videotape the next day. It took them a full hour to get through the first quarter. And they had 60 planted, the margin of loss. They had it planted in their weight room and in their locker room the entire season. And I loved Vic yesterday. We met with him. He said, it was humiliating. I was embarrassed. I was supposed to give a presentation at the Final Four on my vaunted defense, and I got beat by 60. He said, I called the leader who requested that I speak, and I said, do you want me to do this? And so what does he do? He calls Gino Auriemma and says, I need you to help me. I need to understand what you're doing better than I am. And listen, they're not going to make up 60 points. I think it's going to be a major challenge. They do have some things that they can do. They have a 6'7" player, Tiara McCowan, who will be a challenge for Connecticut if they can deliver her the basketball. And they are an excellent defensive team. I just don't think you make up that kind of ground. And what I do wonder, and you guys know, when you're beaten that badly by somebody, what kind of doubts do you step between the lines with if Connecticut goes on a big-time run tonight? Do you have the fortitude, the mental toughness to sort of make a run? We'll see. I'm hoping it's a much closer ball game, obviously.
That's the late game tonight. Again, the women's Final Four is tonight on ESPN2 in Dallas. Doris Burke will be there for all of that. There's one other thing I really wanted to ask you about today, Doris. I'm thrilled to have you. Adam Silver made the comment earlier this week that he would like to see a female head coach in the NBA at some point sooner rather than later, which, as we said, is a very convenient phrase because it's delightfully nonspecific. And that created a whole lot of conversation. And look, here we are talking about Gino Auriemma. We just ran this big feature, overwhelmingly the most successful current coach in any sport is a man coaching women. So I would love to ask you, as one who has been around the sport all of your life and has covered every element of it, what is your perspective on the possibility of a woman coaching at the NBA, head coaching at the NBA level sometime soon?
Well, I think there's a process to get there. And, Becky Hammon has started that process, or more appropriately phrased, probably the Spurs have started that process, right? Because you have to be exposed to the level and learn all of the nuances and things that go into it. No different than a woman who hopes to be a GM in the NBA. There's a process to getting there. And to be honest with you guys, I had such a selfish reaction to Becky Hammon being named a finalist for the Florida job, with which she then just, kind of withdrew her name. Because Becky is hugely important to the distaff side at this moment. But she also has choices to make for her family and her life balance. And Florida was going to be a very high-paying job and probably a little bit different lifestyle in terms of work-life balance. And I just think that there's a process here. And I want for women and their success, but you've got to be put in the position and then meet the opportunity first. And so I'm thrilled that Adam is, as I have always believed the NBA to be, always looking for opportunities for, to make the league as balanced as it can be. So I don't know what the timetable is, Mike, but I know that the process gets started when the people in positions of hiring power, broaden their perspective and perhaps are looking for a different voice. Becky has met that challenge. Selfishly, I hope she stays with the Spurs and continues to pursue that. But, that's her choice. We just need more women to have the opportunity.
And now, insurance-minded speeches from Geico.
Hardship. My grandmother would go through it every month to pay her insurance bill. First, she would handwrite a paper check, in cursive. Then, using her own tongue, she would wet a stamp for an envelope. Today, however, we need not weary our hands and tongues. Today, we can pay our Geico bill with the Geico app. Away with hardship, in with bill pay on the Geico app. Thank you.
Are we back? Our Sports Center brought to you by Goodyear. We were busy laughing. I missed the go in my ear. Sports Center brought to you by Goodyear, superior tire performance where the road takes you for traction and handling in challenging weather. Choose Goodyear. Everything they learn making tires for expert drivers inspires what they roll into yours. Goodyear, more driven. See, I'm kind of torn on this because there's a part of me that I'm trying as I get older to be an open-minded person and to say, look, I'm not trying to convince the world of my point of view.
Right.
I want to hear everyone else's point of view. But if you're going to put pineapple on a pizza, I have an issue with you. But it's not a pizza. It doesn't
affect you, though. You're not eating it, right?
Yes, I'm not even looking at it.
Okay, but it still doesn't affect you at all.
I was a waiter. In a very, very good pizza restaurant. It's the only job I've basically ever had outside of the broadcasting business. I was a waiter.
All right.
I was a darn good waiter, too, I might add. And
what made you a good waiter?
I worked with the customer.
Did you annoy people, though?
Probably,
yeah,
but not purposely.
Okay.
I felt I am a frequent diner, as you know, in restaurants. So I generally feel like I have an idea of what people are looking for from the service that they get from waiters because I know what I'm looking for, and so I tried to provide that.
Okay.
And I actually enjoyed that. It was a good job. I know people all the time talk about it being a terrible job.
Did people order pizza with pineapple on it?
No, we didn't even sell it. It wasn't available.
I wonder when it became a thing.
I don't know, but whenever that was, we should go back and strike that day from our history.
I'm really amazed at how big of a deal you're making this when it has zero effect on you.
Oh, it has effect on me. Manny Walker tweets, a coach's job and management's job is to put players in the best position to succeed, not to force systems on them and trash them publicly. Here's going back to the Phil Jackson, Scottie Pippen, Carmelo Anthony discussion. And I will say it this way. When you take over a franchise, like what I like about John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, like I ran it just 2 days ago. I'm in a place eating lunch, and a guy walks up to me and says, Greeny, what's going on with my 49ers? I said, they're getting it exactly right finally. I have no idea if Shanahan and Lynch if it'll wind up working, but that's what you do. It's down to it's very basic. You're as bad as you can get. You give the blank canvas. You find people you believe in.
Yep.
For whatever reason, you find Kyle Shanahan, you believe in that guy, and then Lynch, you're taking a bet on him. And let them go. Give them 6-year deals and let them go. And you know what they can do? They can build it in the image they want it, right? Whatever it is Kyle Shanahan wants. He said Colin Kaepernick doesn't have the skill set of the offensive quarterback I want. Right. So that's good. When you take over a team, the first thing, when you can start building it in your image if you want. But as a coach in particular, your job is to create things, to play a style that suits the talent you have. I mean, that's the job description. If you're just saying, hey, guys, I know you're not really cut out to do this, but this is the way I've always envisioned playing, so we're going to do it anyway, that's terrible coaching, and it's terrible management. And that's what's going on, and that's why it's Phil's fault.
No, it's not. I mean, it's some Phil's fault. It's still mostly the players' fault.
But do you disagree with what I said?
No, I don't disagree with what you said, but it's about how much you're putting on each. I still put more of a percentage on the play. They're not running 100% triangle offense. They're not. Mike, that's not all they're doing.
Okay, but
they're playing other parts of the game as well, and they're NBA players.
Okay, but let me ask you a question. You were an NFL player.
Yes, I was.
Right? And if Buddy Ryan designed a defense and said, Golic, we're going to put you out on the end, we're going to kind of get you manned up on a tackle, and you're going to use your speed and quickness to get around him, and you're going to be our primary pass rusher. You would have tried as hard as you could, but you couldn't do it because that wasn't your skill set, right? You were born to be in the middle, plugging up the run and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So if you're putting people in a position that they're not, these are the best players in the world they're competing against.
How much do they run in the triangle?
Well, now they're running it exclusively.
Well, forgetting that's now. It's been a long while till now that they've stunk.
Right.
Okay, with the players on the court, and they haven't been running the triangle 100%, 80%, 60%, 50%. 20%?
Well, but they
less.
That's
whatever.
The strangest season because they were like 500 for the first couple of weeks of the season.
So there is blame on both. I agree with that. I think Phil has done a horrible job, and I think that marriage should be over. But if you tell me to put a percentage on it, it's more on the players. Unless you tell me they're only running the triangle 100% of the time, and these guys just flat out do it, and Phil's forced and Hornacek to just run it over and over and over and over again, till I hear something like that, it's the players have to play and execute. I mean, are they even if you're running some of the triangle offense, I mean, you completely incompetent? I mean, you know what? I'll get there occasionally, even if I'm on the outside. Not as much help as I could be on the inside.
Yeah.
You still at the end of the day have to go out and try and execute.
Correct. But there's also, I mean, in that situation now, there's been a culture that's created that's so negative.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, what has been born from that is just been ugly.
Well, let's wrap it up with this. We talked about funny or unusual clauses in contracts. Rougned Odor got 2 horses as part of his contract. In order to pump up Houston Astros pitcher Roy Oswalt for his Game 6 start in the 2005 NLCS, team owner Drayton McClain offered an interesting addendum to his contract. If Roy Oswalt won that start, he would get a bulldozer.
Yeah!
Something that Oswalt had wanted for quite a while. Sure enough, Roy Oswalt won his start, and McClain awarded him his very own bulldozer.
That is awesome.
So he was able to doze with bulls.
Yeah.